I'd like to call this special meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
City Council members Brown. Here. Hazen. Here. Hersey.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wu.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here. Next item on the agenda is public input. I have several cards. One from Eldris Melinda Carr. She does not wish to address the council, but wants to express continued concerns about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer issues, equity, and historic impact. Another from Bishop King James Underwood. He does not wish to address members of the council, but is still concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer issues. One from Alice Novak regarding the rail development. She chooses not to address the council, but she is in opposition to the project. It's harmful to the historic district. I also have one card from Randy Kangas, who wishes to address the council at this time.
Hi, my name is Randy Kangas. I live at 804 West Main.
And you'll have 5 minutes.
Yes, I will go very quickly. I assume you have read all the comments from the Plan Commission and understand that that was a split decision. So I'm not going to rehash all of the engineering and other concerns, but I do want to say the addition of 450 cars on that block will be a very big problem on Main Street. They don't have anywhere to go. Busey is terrible, and so that's certainly a big one. The density and scale is really the big concern, and there's two parts of that. One is the engineering, and the other is the aesthetics. I don't have a good eye for these things. I'm not an architect. The Beckman building, which is a very large building, is 6 stories. So knock 1 story off of that, and this is the scale of this building. It's going to be very large. 60 feet high is very large, and I've tried to look at different buildings of that size. The only thing I see downtown is the County Plaza building. That's 5 stories. So it's going to be a very massive building, very high, right in our backyard. It will frame Main Street. So now, if you walk down Main Street or drive down Main Street, if you look past our house, you'll see trees or whatever else. Now, as you look between the buildings, you will see a 60-foot tall structure. So it will change the aesthetics of Main Street. There will be, in addition, some of the things we didn't mention were things like lights and cameras. That will light up that area. I'm assuming that there will be security cameras. That means security cameras will be looking at our backyard. Maybe they'll see me drinking coffee through the window. This is a very big precedent of having something this big on the east side of Lincoln. And I think you should take some time to really consider that jump. Haven't done that down by the university area. This sets up future precedents where people can come forward and say, well, you did it up here. Why not do it 2 blocks farther down? With that said, this is a very thin veneer of the first settlers in this area. Main Street was the traffic was from an Indian trail and animal trail. It was a high water mark. These are some of the first houses in Urbana that are still left because so much has been knocked down. I can't believe that when you put up a 60-foot building essentially in our backyard, that is going to improve the use as a single-family house. Once it's no longer a single-family house, I wonder how long it will last. The plan case that the staff put this together said under the LaSalle criteria, it will have a positive impact upon redevelopment. So I guess maybe that's what we want, is we want to redevelop Main Street. Put all those things together, I would urge caution. I would table this and think about it more, get more of the engineering, get more of the other information, and really think about the aesthetics and walk that area and think about the precedent you're setting today. Again, I hope you've looked at all the engineering and other things, but this will dramatically change 804, plus all the other ones on the block too. And as I said at the plan meeting, our house is over 150 years old. These are people that knew the Lincolns. It was built by people that knew the Lincolns. They had been in the area since the 1830s. And you might ask yourself if this development will be here 150 years from now, or if our house will be here 10 years from now, if this goes through. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We're going to go ahead and do the rest of the input first. Thank you. I have a card from Nicholas Folkrod on an energy company.
I'm 27. I've never done this before. So, Saturday afternoon, this guy came to my house or came to my apartment. And he was offering to be a third-party energy supplier for Ameren. And I don't know anything about Ameren. This is my first time paying an energy bill. Lived with my parents till I was 19. And lived enlisted for 5 years, stayed in military housing, and then when I got out, I lived in veterans housing. So this is my first time with like an actual legitimate apartment. Kind of nervous right now. To be honest, I didn't know this building existed. I thought that.
Well, you're learning something, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I like learning stuff. I'm a student. Yeah, I thought town halls were something that stopped being relevant in colonial America. He said some buzzwords. He said something about Ameren, and I thought that he was a legitimate guy. I already got like emails and stuff in the mail about the third-party energy supplier getting switched to Homefield, which was done without me doing anything. It was just an automatic thing that the city voted for. And so I thought this guy was a legitimate guy. I signed up for his program, and then I Googled him afterwards because I was feeling pretty weird about it. He seemed like a shady guy. So I Googled it afterwards, and on Yelp, the company had 19 one-star reviews, and every review said that this company is just a scam through and through, scam. 19 different people said that. And actually, I did the math just a few hours ago, and the rate that he quoted me at was 11.92 cents per kilowatt hour. And I don't know what cents per kilowatt hour means. Cents are low, kilowatt hours are big. So I thought that this was a good deal. 11.92 cents, yeah, I'll pay 11 cents, that's fine. But I have a two-bedroom apartment. I keep it at 72 degrees, and my current bill with Ameren as a energy supplier is $144.27. And the rate that he was trying to switch me to would have increased my bill to $341.92. He didn't say he was going to jump that high. He said he was trying to save me money. I believed him because I thought he was a legitimate guy. I heard him knock on the apartment to my left before he came to me, and then when he left, he knocked on the apartment to my right. So he was going door to door, trying to get people to sign up for this. And my apartment has a no soliciting sign anyway, so he's already not following that law. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that that this guy is going around. His name is Gerald Quinn. The name of the company is Vista Energy. I managed to get out of it this morning. I called Vista Energy at 7 a.m. because that's the first time that they were taking customer service calls. Actually, I called Ameren first at 7 a.m. because that's when they were taking calls too. And I stayed on the phone with Amron for about an hour trying to figure out all of this stuff. And after an hour, I think I got it down pretty well. And then I called Vista, and I managed to get to Vista before they enrolled me in their program and before they billed me for anything. So luckily, I'm not getting charged for anything. But I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that this is happening so that other people don't have to pay an extra, like, $200. And then Home Field Energy, that's the one that was voted for by the city. That's only a $20 increase, but it's still an increase. And I don't want the city increasing my energy bill without my action, without me, without my consent for that. That's basically all I had to say today.
Well, thank you, Nicholas, for coming. Yes, we do have municipal electric aggregation with Home Field. The prices fluctuate. Most of the time, the price we got with Home Field was significantly lower than what you would have had with your current supplier.
Right.
At the moment, it's a little bit higher, but on the whole, it's lower. So that's why we're with Home Field.
Okay.
If you want to give your name and phone number to the clerk,
Yep.
we can have our environmental sustainability manager give you a call and
Sure.
talk about this more. But thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it is important for people to know that because we're part of the aggregation program, folks are automatically enrolled unless
Right.
you opt out.
Mm-hmm.
But Scott Tess is the person who will be able to talk to you. I believe he will get back to you.
Cool.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one other community member who is not here to talk about the development is Pastor Courtney Carruthers. And you wish to speak now? You have 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, councilmen and councilwomen. Just want to give an update. We have started a program last Saturday called STEP in relations to sharing thoughts on effective parenting. And we started the branch from STEP. STEP it is our tutoring program. And in this tutoring program, we have children who've been expelled or are facing expulsion or just not going to school to keep them caught up on their curriculum. Also, STEP provides an opportunity for parents to come together and to engage on ways to keep effective talk going with their children. Just want to put it out to the community as well as to the councilmen and women what we are doing. We have received a lot of requests for children to come, as well as parents committing to come out and talk due to the recent incidents that have been taking place in school in our community, and we just need support from all the councilmen and women to let other people know that this program is going forth and is a strong community program to enrich lives and to educate our children within our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Does anyone wish to address the city council at this time? Okay, we'll move on to new business. First up is ordinance number 2019-02-015, an ordinance amending the Urbana zoning map, which is rezoning 802, 804, 806, 808 Clark Street from R4 to B3, and 810, 812, 814, and 816 Clark Street, and 408 North Lincoln Avenue from B2 to B3. This was planned case 2361 M-18. So we'll have the staff report and update on this project, followed by an opportunity to hear from the applicant, questions, and then we will take public input on this project, and then that'll be followed by council discussion.
So while Kevin is pulling up the presentation, I'll just give a quick introduction. So what he'll be presenting tonight is a potential redevelopment of area of the city, or a number of parcels in the city that have many times sought rezoning but have failed for a variety of reasons. And also, it is a parcel or set of parcels that the comprehensive plan has long envisioned, since our 2005 comprehensive plan, long envisioned for a mixed-use gateway at this location. And so with that, Kevin is going to explain a little bit about the project, as well as why staff feels that it is an appropriate rezoning and special use permit.
Thanks, Lori. Before I begin, I just kind of want to give a quick outline of the presentation that I'll be giving tonight. So first, just to give you all some context, I'd like to take you on a quick photo tour of the site, sort of around the perimeter of the site, just to give you an understanding of the site, what's there now, et cetera, if you haven't had a chance to get out there and walk it yourselves. Then I'll go through the usual pieces with land use, surrounding land uses, zoning, et cetera. I'll talk a little bit about the proposed use, as well as the updated site plan, which you all should have received earlier today, if not by email earlier in the weekend. Want to talk a bit about public input and the Plan Commission hearings, then to address specific issues that were raised at the Plan Commission. I'd like to then briefly discuss some potential development scenarios for the site if these requests are denied. Then briefly go through the rezoning and special use criteria. And then finally, I will wrap up after that. Okay, so to begin with, we'll just start looking west down Clark Street. From Busey towards Lincoln. The site is on the right of this photo, so you'll see there are some single-family homes that have been rentals for quite some time. Then moving down to the corner of Lincoln and Clark, looking north, you'll see another one of those single-family homes, and then across, or in the background, that two-story white building is a commercial building that's on the northern part of the site, and that part is currently zoned B3. Just a picture from that same vantage point, just at more of the homes that are the rental homes on the north side of Clark. Then moving north on Lincoln, this is an alley that has been vacated, so it is now a private alley, but on the left side, that's the northern part of the site. To the right is the southern part of the site. There's one of the access points to the site off of Lincoln Avenue. This photo shows the sidewalk looking north on Lincoln, next to that commercial building. You'll see off to the left across University Avenue is the new retreat development that's being built. You're also looking at the right in the middle. There's a driveway here that is one of the 3 entry points to this site. You'll see that it's very close to the intersection, as is. Looking south from that same point, you'll just see the sidewalk, which the city does have plans to resurface Lincoln Avenue and improve the sidewalks along here in the next year. But right now, the sidewalks are in pretty bad condition. Here's that driveway again to the north. These are the commercial properties on the northern part of the site. It's sort of wedge-shaped. I'll show you the site location map in a minute, so you'll see what the site looks like. But it's sort of wedge-shaped. It's wedged in between Lincoln Avenue, Clark Street, and the railroad to the north. I'm just looking east from that same vantage point. Just for context, directly across the street from where I was standing when I took that last photo is this 3-story mixed-use building. It's owned by the university. I consider it the Einstein Bagels building because that's what's there on the first floor. So you see directly across the street there is a mixed-use building. Then again, the retreat, which is going up sort of kitty corner, but across the railroad tracks as well. And then to the north across University Avenue is this, is a Carl, I think is that a resale shop, or is that further down? And a pulmonary office, yes, that's what that says. Okay. So the northern border of the site is this rail line. It is still active. I live further east of here, and this rail line goes right behind my house. We get about, one train or 2 trains every week that go down that rail line. This is on the eastern end along Busey, looking north across the railroad tracks. You'll see right here on the left side, that's the eastern access point to the site, which you get a better view of here. So you'll see there's a driveway really close to those railroad tracks right now, and then you see the commercial buildings in the distance. Looking sort of southwest from that point, you just see one of the single-family homes again. And then to end the tour, this is looking south at St. Patrick's Church, and then the corner of Clark and Busey. Okay, so for some context, this shows the existing land use and the location. So you'll see the sort of the red wedge-shaped piece on the north is being used for commercial. The yellow hatched areas are single-family rental homes, and then right in the middle of the block on Clark, there is a small apartment building. Again, to the northwest, you have the Retreat, which was recently rezoned. It was former Illinois American Water site. To the west, you have commercial with the Einstein's Bagels, and then a lot of these sort of silvery blue are Carl properties, and then these other red properties are commercial properties, and then some other residential uses to the south. The current zoning, the northern half of the site is already zoned B3. The southwestern part of the site, sort of that, it's not quite salmon, it's a little lighter than salmon, but the salmon color is B2, which is neighborhood business arterial. And then on the southeast, that lighter brown is R4 multifamily, medium density multifamily residential. Surrounding, again, you notice the blue is for medical campus. The red is other B3 parcels. And then you have to the south multifamily residential. And then across the street you have some B3U, which is general business university. And the comprehensive plan, as Lori mentioned, comprehensive plan identifies this site for community business. It also has this specific note that says, promote as a gateway to the university district through architecture and urban design of mixed-use redevelopment. I was looking through the comp plan earlier. I found another note, if I can pull that up. It also says it says to beautify the key gateway intersection at this point. Okay, so moving on to some specifics, or actually let me talk about the proposed use really quickly. And I think I'm gonna skip to the end to pull up the site plan while I'm talking about this. Okay, so the proposed use for the site is a mixture of hotel rooms. Those would be extended stay hotel rooms, which essentially means they have a kitchenette in there, so you can stay longer than a normal hotel. And then there would be about 200 apartments. There would also be retail space sort of on the northwest corner at University and Lincoln. As I mentioned in the introduction, there's been some public input, not just at the Plan Commission, but on January 15th, the applicant held an open house at the St. Patrick Catholic Church And I counted more than 50 people that attended that meeting, and the developer was there, and they answered questions about the design, the building height, screening, parking, things of that nature. Then at the Plan Commission held 2 hearings on these cases, one on January 24th, one on February 7th. And there were a number of issues that were discussed at those hearings, and those included building height, density, infrastructure, including sewers, which I'll get to in a sec, and transportation. At the February 7th meeting, the Plan Commission voted 5-3 to recommend approval of the rezoning request to B3 for those southern parcels, and voted 7-1 to recommend approval of the special use permit with conditions that you can find in the staff memo on page 2. And I'll state those later when we get to the recommendation. Okay, so one of the issues that came up at the Plan Commission meetings was sewer infrastructure, and there's a long write-up in the staff memo that was written by Brad Bennett, one of our co-city engineers. He's here tonight if you have any questions specific to sewer infrastructure. I will just briefly say this is well served by sewer infrastructure. It might be kind of hard to see on the maps, but all the dotted lines are sewers, either sanitary sewers in green or storm sewers in light blue. We do not have any concerns about the sewer infrastructure on this site. Site access was another thing that was another concern that was brought up. Currently, you'll see there are many access points, including 3 or 4, depending on how you want to count them, along Lincoln Avenue. One of those, sort of the alley and that driveway next to it, are just kind of a wide swath of access to the site. So currently there's not much traffic coming to this site. If there were more traffic, we'd want to see those access points cleaned up. That could cause safety issues. Again, in your memo, there's a good write-up on traffic and access written by Craig Schonkweiler, who is also in the audience tonight. On the east side of the site, there is that one driveway that I pointed out on Busey Avenue that comes out right next to the railroad. So if the site were redeveloped, you'd want to see that moved as well. Again, the railroad's not terribly active, but you don't want to have an access point that close to an active railroad. There are 5 access points here on Clark Street, but those are not really of concern. So the proposed site access, and this does have the new, the updated site plan that you all have in front of you. The proposed access points would be favorable. There would be one access point on Clark Street and then one access point on Busey. It would remove all of the access points that are directly on Lincoln Avenue, which would improve the safety and traffic along Lincoln Avenue. The site is also really well served by MTD. It's also very pedestrian friendly. It's a site that you can bike to and from destinations very easily. So on this map, we've highlighted there are 5 different MTD bus lines that have stops within 2 to 4 blocks, and those serve everything from Parkland College. If you were to walk 4 blocks to the north and catch the gray bus, you can serve Parkland, and then obviously buses that serve the university, but also downtown Urbana, downtown Champaign, and points further east and west and north and south, all points. The site it's about a 10-minute walk from the university, from the OSF hospital campus from the Carl, only a few minute walk from the Carl campus. It's 10-minute walk from downtown as well. There are many sidewalks in the area to make walking easy. Okay, I did want to get into, let's see. More of the specific issues. So one of the issues that came up was sort of height and density. And while the B3 district, which is the district that's being proposed for the entire site, there is no height limit in the district, but height is effectively capped by the floor area ratio. It's also capped by parking regulations, building codes, and market conditions. Parking, as you'll notice on the site map here, or on the site plan, eats up a lot of the site. It covers a good 2/3 of the site. And parking really limits how large of a footprint you can have for a building, so that limits the density that you can have on a site. Also, the building code dictates that the taller that you build a building, the more expensive per floor a building is. I included in Exhibit I a table from the International Code Council, which is kind of hard to read, but essentially the takeaway is that if you build something taller than 6 stories, it's going to cost an extra 15% per story, not just for the extra story. It'll cost an extra 15% per story to go higher than 6 stories, and 25% per story if you go beyond 9 stories. So to build something really tall on the site, say the site is rezoned to B3, and the proposed development is not built, the chances of a really tall building on the site are not very likely. The market that we have for building tall buildings in Urbana right now is not, is not great when you think that with tall buildings, you generally have apartments, office space, or hotels. Right now we have a surplus of office space in Urbana, so really the most likely things you're going to see on the site would be hotel, or the most likely tall buildings you'd see on the site, pardon me, would be hotels or residential uses. I think maybe from an economic development standpoint, a 5-story hotel wouldn't be the worst thing, but that's probably not too likely, and that leaves apartments. So in this case, if the parcels are rezoned to B3 and somebody proposes an apartment building, they would still require a special use permit, which would require going to Plan Commission, which would require coming to City Council for final approval. I'll briefly mention, since it took up so much of the council packet, the traffic impact analysis that was put together by Burns Clancy and Associates. As I mentioned, Craig Schonkweiler's in the audience. If you have specific questions about that, I don't believe that the consultant that put together that report is here tonight. But reading through the traffic impact analysis, it indicates that the additional traffic that could be expected from this proposed development is minimal. I'd like to briefly talk about pardon me. I want to briefly talk about the proposed site plan that's in front of you. The one that went out with your packet was an earlier version that showed, essentially, it was the same up until you get to the eastern part of the building. In the older proposal, the developer had proposed the building to be set a lot closer to Clark Street, and there was some concern at the Plan Commission hearings about having a building that's 5 stories tall that close to Clark Street. So the developer went back and met with his architects and worked on a new site plan where the building is set back as far as they could feasibly set it back to help address those concerns. So the updated site plan that you have in front of you is the site plan that is proposed for the special use permit, and that is the one that you would be voting to approve tonight.
How many feet?
It's set back 65 feet from the property line. And also in the proposed ordinance, we've attached the renderings that the developer has submitted, and those would, the Plan Commission recommended that the site plan and the renderings, that the development would conform, or would be in general conformance to the site plan and the renderings. So I wanted to pull up some pictures, or pull up those renderings. The second rendering is slightly different because, as you'll notice, this is looking sort of northeast across Lincoln and then down Clark Street. So this does not show the building being pushed back. So I suppose an updated, a caveat could be attached to say that the updated renderings would reflect the site plan. With respect to the rezoning and special use permit criteria, not going to go through each of those. I think I've taken up enough time thus far. But I did want to say that the Plan Commission found that the proposal was in conformance with the rezoning criteria and with the special use permit requirements, and staff supports their conclusion. I would be happy to discuss any of those criteria if anybody wants to go into specifics as well. So the recommendation from the Plan Commission, as I stated earlier, was to approve both of these requests, and including 4 criteria in the special use permit, and those are that the development shall be constructed in general conformance with the attached site plan and renderings, that the developer shall submit a final traffic impact analysis, which they have done, including an analysis of pedestrian and transit use prior to the city issuing any building permits, that the developer shall adequately mitigate negative impacts the final traffic impact analysis anticipates prior to the city issuing a certificate of occupancy, and that the maximum height of the building is 55 feet. Sorry. I was looking right at it. 65 feet, except that the building height may reach 70 feet near the northeast corner of the building to accommodate roof access. Really briefly, before I conclude, I want to echo something that Lori spoke about in her opening remarks. Our comprehensive plan is really the city's guiding document for how we want the city to be developed. More than 13 years ago, the comprehensive plan was approved, and it said that this site should be a mixed-use gateway to the University District, And it also said that this key gateway intersection should be beautified. We feel that the proposals before you represent concrete plans to do just that and meet these goals of the comprehensive plan. And these types of proposals don't come along every day. The Plan Commission recommended approval of both of these requests, and staff concurs. And that concludes my report.
Are there technical questions for staff? Bill?
Thanks, Kevin. Did you guys do any kind of line of sight analysis as far as if you were standing in a backyard on the north side of Main Street, looking between two houses at the new building as it's set back now, approximately where the roof line of that building would be compared to the houses that you're looking between?
I looked at it in a rudimentary way, but nothing that was really ready for presentation.
And I'll just add that in light of the work that I knew that they were doing to make the accommodation of moving the wing of the building, and I know that their architect was working probably around the clock, that we didn't request that because we wanted to see if they were able to make that accommodation rather than have them focusing on that other piece.
Okay, thanks.
Dennis?
And appropriate to Bill's interest in understanding the visual impact of this development for those individuals who have concern about it on Main Street. It would be also useful, because even though it's not part of our discussion in this case, to consider how the spacing and the positioning of the clustered townhomes has as far as a visual effect, whether it is possible to view the 5-story building over those buildings, or I guess actually there's going to be a lot of parking that's going to be allowing space between the proposed townhomes. So I'm interested in kind of understanding how the complete development that's being proposed will affect those people who live on Main Street, not just the part that we're dealing with during this discussion about the zoning. Because it's an entire package that has to be considered as far as the effect of property owners. The other thing I want to ask about a little bit is, one of the LaSalle criteria asks about is the development considered to influence either positively or negatively the property values of those near it. And I'm going to ask you whether are you looking and answering that just the property values of the buildings that are completely adjacent to it, or are you also looking at the property values and what potentially would be a decline in resale value for individual homes on Main Street?
Generally, when we look at that criteria, we're looking at the immediately adjacent properties, but we don't do any sort of in-depth technical analysis. We're not appraisers, so we're not really qualified to do that.
But you are making an opinion. Is that correct? Is there therefore that you're using an opinion to answer that particular criteria?
Yeah, it's a criteria that we need to address, so we're using our best professional opinion.
Right. And so one of the concerns, of course, among the community is that it's going to be very difficult to resell a house on Main Street if the view shed becomes so changed that maybe people will be less interested in purchasing a home. And that would include then a deprivation of property value.
Eric, and then Sharice.
So this is sort of a process rather than a technical question, but I hope I can ask it. Part of the property is going to be residential, and part of it is going to be business. And I wonder why the decision was made to bring this to us as zoning the entire block business and then asking for a special use permit for residential, as opposed to bringing us a B zoning for the commercial part and an R zoning for the residential part. And specifically, let me put this in context. One might have the view that the business part looks great, but that the residential part is too big. But these things are so intertwined by the process by which this has been brought to us that there isn't, that I don't know how to meaningfully express that view.
So in looking at the R districts that are available to us in the zoning ordinance, how do I say this politely? They don't get you a lot. So there's not a lot of development that is possible under an R6 or an R6B development. I'm not sure that the developer did an analysis, but and I would need to read the note as to the height. The height on those is also dependent on the width of the street, so it doesn't get you a lot in height. So from our perspective, it didn't meet what the developer was requesting, so we certainly weren't going to lead them down a path incorrectly based on what they were requesting.
So by my reading of the ordinances, and I'm not an expert and I haven't seen a lot of cases, this would not fit in R5.
Correct.
But could possibly, with the setback, without the setback, it wouldn't have fit in R6 either. But now that it's set back from the street so that it fits the requirement that the height is no more than twice the setback, it would meet perhaps R6 if it would meet other kinds of qualifications.
I would take a guess that it's the FAR that might be what holds you up there, because the FAR in R6 is a 1.4. So in essence, if that entire area of the site had, was covered, and then 40% of the second floor was covered, would get you at 1.4. So not having done the math, just eyeballing it, it doesn't appear as though the FAR would be possible.
So there's a reason why the ordinances are written that way.
Sharice?
All I wanted to know basically was, in looking at the map, we have the area where the gather is going to be. And then across the street, across Clark Street, this is a different photo I'm looking at, is the single-family residences that are also owned or something by another development company or the same development company?
The ones on the south side of Clark?
Yeah.
So those ones are under contract by the same developer.
Okay, by the same developer.
And they are proposing to do a by right development, so a development that conforms to that zoning, so they don't require any special zoning approvals.
Okay, and so there is not knowing what's going to go across the street from Gather on Clark, correct? Or if you're going to keep it that way, or if they're going to keep it that way because they own that property, or if they're going to change it up, or they say they're going to change it up. There's no way that you could actually determine for anybody whether their property taxes will go up, go down, the value of their property will go up or go down, one way or the other.
Not that I know of.
Okay, so that it's because you don't have that information, or do you anticipate that there may be a devaluation of their property, of the property of the Main Street people? I see single-family residences also, all around there. Do you anticipate that there may be a possible devaluation based on those two developments, or?
We don't think that there will be,
Okay,
but at this point, it's I guess speculation on one side or the other. Looking at what currently exists on the site that we're talking about, I think it would be it'd be kind of hard to believe that that's increasing property values nearby.
That the site as is increasing, or is?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think what's there right now is really increasing anybody's property values.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just wanted to get that information.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll hear from representatives from the development company next, and maybe Lori and Kevin can stay close by.
We'll be right over there.
So this is Mr. Graham Rail from Rail Development, and can you please introduce your architect,
Sure.
please?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council people. This is Jeremy White with BSB Architects, and I'm Graham Rail from Rail Development.
Good evening.
We appreciate the opportunity. We thought it would be a good idea, I'll run through a little bit of our portfolio as briefly as I can, but just to give you some context to what we've done in the past and how it relates to this project. It's here on this, can I just page down here? So what we've done is we've just put a little bit of a visual tour, only of the projects that are most related to this project, being either student housing, hospitality, mixed use. We are a development company based in Texas with offices in California. We've done projects from North Carolina to Washington State. And, this project here in Urbana is obviously, right in our wheelhouse. This is one of the more recent projects we've done. It's in Greenville, North Carolina. It's a student housing project. It was actually designed by BSB Architects and just recently delivered. One thing I want to point out as I go through some of these projects is that they are all architecturally varied. We aim to come to a community and really understand what it is about that community that makes it special and try and infuse that into the project. We feel that that gives, the soul to the project, and obviously as a complement to the neighborhood. This project, for example, is right in the what they call the uptown to downtown design district of Greenville, North Carolina. It happens to be across from City Hall. There was a lot of existing Art Deco buildings in this community. So we saw that, and we really brought that into the inside and outside of this project. Again, I just want to point out not just the architecture, but also the quality of the projects we do. This is the courtyard of that project, and I'm going to run through it quickly. I don't want to, belabor this, but if you have any questions, we can answer those as well.
Can you tell me what the material is that's on the surfaces of the interior court?
Oh, the material on the building?
Yes.
This
The
building
facade.
is primarily brick and fiber cement.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, the courtyard view. This is an image as you go into the interior. This is what we would consider the study room, study and computer room. Again, even in our amenities, we try not to do things that are cold and dry. This is one of the more popular spaces actually in the building. Believe it or not, students like to study. We like to give them a creative and fun place to do that. This is the lobby as you walk into this project, and it's actually quite relevant to this project. Even though this is 100% student housing, this lobby was really made to feel like a hotel lobby. A lot of what we've done, students come here, and we have a lot of community events, and there's a cereal bar and breakfast, and this is a very active space. So again, our lobby is not just a lobby, it's a place where we like people to feel part of the community, meet each other, and we've got pancakes on Mondays and tacos on Tuesdays, and we do a lot of things at our communities to make them feel like community. And of course, the projects are designed, just for that. This project is in California. This is a hotel over retail. It's going to be it's actually under construction now to be delivered this fall. It's going to be operated by Hyatt. Their luxury boutique flag is called the Andaz. And It's a very architecturally significant project for the city, at a gateway location, much like this, right as you kind of drive into the core of their pedestrian downtown. Again, it'll have retail on the ground floor and the hotel above. This will be the entrance as you come in off the elevator. Again, I'm just going to go quickly, but please feel free to stop me. This, again, is the lobby. This is the bar inside. And then, you know, we feel that outdoor spaces are as important as the indoor space. This is our outdoor bar area and resort pool. This is Palm Springs, California, a little different than Urbana. But
You're going to do an atrium just like that, right?
that's right, right. In any case, you know, this project actually was just listed as one of the most anticipated 2019 openings by Forbes. So we're proud of it. And again, this is a completely different project. This is in Bellingham, Washington. Just to show you how we really try and understand the architecture and what it is about the community that makes it special. A lot of indoor, outdoor here. There's magnificent views, a little more craftsman style in the architecture. But a different kind of, you know, this is actually in our study room. We did a little meditation kind of nook if you want to go in there and read and relax and just something to do, a little creative. This is again, the study room, which feels a little bit more like a coffee shop for that type of, you know, the demographic there really likes that. Our entrance. And there's more. I just kind of put these slides together. Here's a project in Fayetteville, Arkansas. This is Pure Student. University of Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee. These are study rooms up at the top and a little movie theater we built inside. Oxford, Mississippi. And this is a project in Texas. These are all student projects. Big music school, so we created music practice rooms and things that made, you know, again, this project just special for that community. I want to just point out that, you know, I show you these different types of projects because, and I can pull the site plan back up and in our words just tell you that, you know, we came to this community probably, I don't know, it's been 4 or 5 months, and we have done a lot of listening. This project, this site plan that you see today, and I apologize that we got this last one in so last minute, but it really was as a result of us, you know, really working late at night to try and turn this around. And we've been listening to comments ever since we got here. When we first started on this project, from, you know, our seats, we looked at, you know, hey, could we just abandon Clark Street and build one big project, and that would be most cost efficient, and we would build a couple, you know, donuts around structured parking. And as you can see, this project has evolved quite a bit from there. We immediately felt the soul that is the historic district. We've been trying to respond to that ever since we got here. Clark Street, we wanted to feel like a pedestrian, you know, animated drive through both sides of the project, the north and south side of the project. And the other thing that we've really been paying attention to is along the way, obviously, there's the importance of the University and Lincoln intersection, which we wanted to make, you know, a strong statement that befits that corner, which I think we've done architecturally. We're very pleased with that. And but the other thing that we've done along the way is that we've been paying attention to how we're actually going to get this thing built. The economic viability of this project is as important to us. These projects that you've seen up there, we are not in the business of flying around the country and entitling projects and trying to do 15 at a time. We really are very selective. We like to find sites much like the one we have here, which is you know, what we feel is a signature location. We've met with the Carl Hospital folks because we think that that's you know, we're as much of a neighbor to them as we are to the university. And we have looked at this site 100 different ways. And the combination of the amount of density we need here, how we're going to park it, because it does require, quite a bit of parking, and how we're going to be able to do that and afford it. So we've got a combination of structured parking and surface parking, and we feel that we've looked at this every which way we can and also tried to listen along the way. We've had a feasibility period which is, set to expire. So again, we appreciate that you've rushed to have this meeting. We are on a clock, and that clock is expiring. We need to get this thing built. It's so that it opens before the particular school year. So we appreciate your consideration to move this forward, and if you have any questions, we're here for you. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Braille? Eric?
Without, giving great detail on your economic model, which is probably not reasonable to ask for, but the concern that I continue to hear from the people directly south is, I think everybody loves the hotel. Everybody loves everything that you're proposing up Lincoln Avenue and around that corner. It's the almost block-long apartment block that seems to us, as we imagine it, to loom over the historic district. So I guess my, is there any feasible way to lower that profile? One would be to simply have a lower density. The other would be to have the same height, but a larger footprint. And I don't know, you guys are the experts in both economic and structural feasibility. What are the possibilities of that?
We've looked at it, and to answer your question, the short answer is no. There is no other way that we have found that we can do that. The only other thing we could have done is built a platform across the whole. Right now, that building wing, which incidentally is set back, it's 65 feet.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, 65 from
Right.
the actual back of curb, or I'm sorry, back of
right.
sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, back of sidewalk, yeah. So I mean, it's a great distance from the street right now.
And just as a point of clarification, just rough estimates from the backside of the south parcel that's on the other side of Clark Street that we've been talking about, that's obviously not part of this discussion, but it seems to be inserting
Because people
inserting
live there.
itself.
Yeah, my constituents live there. It's part of the discussion.
The looming nature of a 5-story building, I understand the concerns with that. The facade that we're talking about on the north side of Clark Street is approximately the distance of a football field from the south side of the parcel that we're looking at as well. So doing by right. So just to give you a kind of an approximate distance from the 5-story structure to the back of the parcels.
In your renderings, you've sort of done a mixed brick and siding and something else that's hard to see because of the level of detail. Do you envisage that how close to what your renderings are saying do you expect that to be?
Very.
Very.
Yeah, that's the architectural model that goes to a render that consults with our architect, and that's what we're intending to do.
Yeah, those are illustrative, as you mentioned, for
Right.
what we're looking at to kind of get a vibe and a feel, and as Graham mentioned, a soul to respond to a historic nature. But in terms of exact percentages of materials and things
Right.
like that, obviously we're still working through that. But the goal is that, as Graham mentioned, with time being of the essence, the design process also has to kick up a notch as well.
So with time being of the essence, does that mean in time to be ready for 2020, 2021 school year? Is that the marker?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I also wanted to mention one other thing that I wanted to kind of give a nod to rail development, just in terms, BSB does a lot of student housing, purpose-built student housing across the country. And one of the things that I absolutely appreciate is that if you're ever going to kind of hit it where it hurts, so to speak, it's in the pocketbook. And most developers will come in here and they will say, no, we just need to have as many 4 beds as we can possibly get so that we can maximize our revenue and, et cetera. One of the things that rail development has come in and been very focused on is addressing specific needs, provided that there are a lot of 4 beds in the market. So if you look at the mix that we're providing here, it's predominantly studios and 1 beds, and that's really an indication of just trying to be sensitive to both the hospital and the university as well. So just pointing that out.
Yeah, I have one other question about economic model. If you need this level of density in the residential wing, why are you even bothering with townhouses on the south side of Clark?
I don't understand.
Okay, here's what I...
Are you saying that we should put more density on the south to
No, I'm
lower
not
the
saying,
density?
no, I'm not saying, I'm saying you wouldn't put 3-story townhouses on the south side of Clark if you weren't going to make at least some money on that.
Oh,
So-
well, I mean, of course, we look at this project in total.
Yeah.
But before I even knew the zoning,
Mhm.
we felt that having a much lower density, lower scale, forget even that it's of right in the zone.
Yeah.
But we specifically wanted to have this project start, dropping down as on that south side of Clark Street. It's less obtrusive for the neighbors, and it was a natural transition for us.
Do you anticipate that the architectural style of those townhouses will also reflect, but on a smaller scale,
Yes.
the style of what's on North Side?
Yes,
Side of
absolutely.
Clark? Yeah.
We want it to be one family, and we want it to really,
Yeah.
we want it to feel like one family, one project.
Dennis?
Thinking out of the box or creatively, because the concerns for the community who are going to live south of this have to do with the density and what they consider to be kind of a wall of building, which is going to go down Clark Street, which is going to have more of an impact because it's going to be more visual. It's going to be the longer facade of your complex. If the community felt that it was better to keep the density as far to the corner as possible, had you thought of changing the plan using the first model to extend it in an S shape so that it spiraled back toward University Avenue?
We looked, we did. We looked at, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
We've looked at that, and we've
You
looked
did?
at, yes, we have. And we cannot get, it doesn't work. Not to mention, we've got a very efficient building from a, from a construction point of view at the moment. But we did. We looked at S's, we looked at E's, we looked at upside-down L's, we looked at literally every possible scenario that we could think of.
Well, okay, I give you credit for that.
Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, I think we can tell that you put a lot of thought into it, and I agree that the efficiencies in studios and things like that will be attractive to people doing their residencies in the hospitals, things like that. I think it's a need that, and the extended stay is good. I like the, the gateway effect and everything. I had a couple questions about connectivity, and even with moving the main building 65 feet to the north, it seems like it might make people more likely to go out that north door and go down University Avenue instead of come out and go on Clark Street. So that kind of affects maybe the pedestrian pattern a little bit. I can see a lot of people using the University corridor and going toward campus because that's where the fast food restaurants are. If you want to pick up, if you wake up at 11 o'clock in the morning and you want to get, lunch on your way to class or something. So, and plus the university is going to be going through a resurfacing and development of the sidewalks and everything with the IDOT program. So I think that corridor might have been a little bit overlooked as far as the things I was reading about. Most of the expectations seem to be thinking people are going to be crossing at Clark Street. I know having the light to cross at University would be worth, a 30-foot walk for me, or 50-foot, or whatever it's going to take to get up to the north. So I would consider that. I also like the indoor bike parking, kind of along the same line as what I said before. If there's a way to connect that through a breezeway to the north, so you can take your bike out to the north or to the inside court, that would, I think, benefit too. Then I'll ask the same question I asked Kevin, and maybe since we have an architect here that understands arctangents and things like that. If you were standing in the backyard of a house on the north side of Main Street there, and there's houses and, there will be, I guess, if this is approved, townhouses that could be 30 feet high. And you're probably 150 feet away from them if you're standing in the backyard. So if you look up 30 feet and you're 150 feet away, and then another 200 feet to the front face of the building on Clark Street, that's going to be more than 65 feet, right?
Yes, I mean, in terms of just drawing a line from a perspective of a person standing in the backyard, if I'm hearing you correctly, standing in the...
So that person looking at the roof of the 5-story building, it would actually appear to be slightly lower than the roof of the houses in the backyard, directly behind them.
Yeah, effectively, I think with a tree line buffer as well as the proposed, the possibility of a townhome, I don't believe that you would see very much, if at all.
Yeah, there seems to be this opinion that this 5-story building is going to be looming over the townhouse buildings.
Right.
I think that's an incorrect assumption. I think that's important to understand.
Yes.
Plus, there can potentially be a lot of vegetation screening. It'll take 5 or 10 years, 15, 20 years maybe to get there, but okay, I just wanted to clarify that view, that kind of view opinion.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go on to, thank you very much. We'll go on to public input, and then it will be council discussion. First up is Dan Falk.
I'm Daniel Folk. I live at 807 West Main Street, so I'm on the south side of Main Street, directly south of the proposed development. I'd like to be for this. I'm on board with what they proposed for the corner of University and Lincoln, certainly. I am concerned about the overall size and density and the number of people we're bringing into a neighborhood. Whatever the traffic engineers have to say about getting in and out of this space, it's a hard neighborhood to get out of. You're not going to be able to practically turn south off of Clark Street onto Lincoln. It's too difficult. I never do it. When we need to go south or southwest, we go to Busey and go south to Springfield. And I think that's what these people are going to have to do too. I drove my wife down Busey on Saturday, and with no activity at the church, Busey north of Main is one lane. We had to sit and wait for traffic to clear in order to get through there. Busey is not improved. It doesn't have any gutters. It has just crushed limestone shoulders, and it's essentially a oil and chip township road. So it's just not adequate to handle the traffic from a development of 400 people. This is a very, very, very big development, only a few hundred feet from the city's only contiguous historic district. And I just think it's too big and too close. It's going to have adverse effects on the property values of the historic homes on the north side. And without the historic character of those homes on the north side, the historic character of the homes on the south side are going to be lost. So I think that'll be detrimental to our property values. I'd urge you to re-examine whether these properties can't be developed under the current zoning regime. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next is Jason Rock.
Thank you. So I just want to say that I'm in support of this because I'm in support of more housing for basically across the Urbana district. I live at 202 North Race, which is one of the few developments in Urbana downtown or walkable to the Urbana downtown district that is actually a large-scale development. This would meet needs that graduate students have, that people at the people that are going to be at the university's med school will have. We have a need for housing in Urbana that meets the needs of graduate students, that meets the needs of undergraduates. And right now, honestly, the needs of graduate students in Urbana are not being met. University and Lincoln are major roads. The people that live in the historic district, I understand their concerns, but I did a quick back of the envelope calculation. So from Main Street to this development is about 400 feet. The proposed development's 65 feet. The setbacks of the houses on Main Street are about 90 feet, give or take. This development from the road of Main Street will look about 15 feet tall. It won't tower over any of the buildings that are on Main Street. All of those buildings are 3-ish stories. They have they're beautiful buildings. I absolutely do not disagree with that. But this development will not appear to tower over them from Main Street, certainly. In their backyards, it will look like a large building. But again, that's only from their backyards, and it will probably be dwarfed by the as-right development that they're proposing to put actually in the space between the development and the current buildings. Someone previously said that there'll be 500 cars. I mean, that's ridiculous. There will not be 500 cars because of this development. Many of the graduate students here don't own cars. I don't own a car. My girlfriend doesn't own a car. Many of my friends don't own cars. And if you do own a car, it's one car for you and your friend, or one car per apartment at most. And these units are going to be very walkable, very busable to Urbana and to the likely places that these people will work. Another thing that was said today was that the buildings have existed there for 150 years. That's absolutely true. 150 years ago when they were built, they looked out of place for the neighborhood too. Yes, this will look out of place for a neighborhood that was built 150 years ago. It won't look out of place for the neighborhood that we should build. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Next up is Larry Lister.
Thank you. This one live. Thank you. I'm Larry Lister. I live at 707 West Main, so I'm a block to the east of the historic Main Street, the official historic Main Street district, although I have the only remaining old single-family home on that block as well. I've got the church across the street from me, and similar stuff in my backyard to what is in the backyard of the folks that live over on the north side of Main. So on the south side of Clark, these single family, mostly rentals and so forth. So, like Dan Folks said, I want to be for this. I really do. the architecture that I saw and some of the attention to detail and what I have looked at is really good, and I commend the rail group for that work and hope that something can work out here. I'm a mechanical engineer by training and by trade. I work on buildings, different types of buildings than these, but large buildings, mostly healthcare. And one of the concerns I have, I think the issue that I share as a homeowner, of the the views and so forth, and the density and things have all been well stated, and I would second some of those or most of those. But what I wanted to do is try to find out more and maybe try to learn more, because I live in the high block as well, where we've enjoyed dry basements and so on and so forth. But I am concerned about not just the proposed development, the proposed gather project, but also the oncoming project to the northeast, which is also quite a bit of density on the sanitary system and the sewer system. Now, I can't say that I've looked at it and have any major concerns specifically because of this 8-inch line or this 4-inch line or this collector. Again, that's not my area of expertise, and I just tonight saw the graphics, so I'll get a look at that and maybe meet with somebody just for my own background. But I am concerned about that aspect of it as much as any, and hoping that what I heard earlier was that, oh, it's not going to be a problem. We got all these, we've got all these green and blue dashed lines going all over the place. It's true. That could be true. I don't know. So I'm going to be looking more into that. But other than that, I just wanted to come and weigh in on the issue. And I think that having talked to a lot of my neighbors and some of my own concerns, that if there's a way, I know the design crunch process of all too well, and I feel for what I know you're going through right now behind me. But at some point, with the building models and things that we have, is the sooner the better that we could get a perspective or a look from Main Street, maybe from the front of the houses on Main Street, looking back not only at the subject gather property north of Clark, but again, the gorilla in the room is sort of what's going to happen on that south side of Clark. I mean, we know sort of what's going to happen, but the impact of that site-wise from somebody standing, where on Dan Folk's side of Main Street or in the front yards of the historic properties, I think would tell a lot of the story, because the Revit model, or however we do this, if you can build that out and get that perspective, I tend to agree from my gut take on buildings and tall buildings and things that I have to work with, that the large one on the 5-story, given that it's pushed back, I don't think that's going to be as big an issue as the buildings that are proposed for the south side of Clark, as far as for the people that live in that block. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Phyllis Winters-Williams.
I live at 810 West Main, so I am right on the south side of the by right development. And there is a map that shows that by right. I could pass it to you, Charlie. This came to us right before the hearing at the Parish Center, when we first saw the plans. And I've got to tell you first off that they may have been talking to people for the last 4 or 5 months. It wasn't us. We found out about this development proposal in the newspaper, and that there was going to be a public hearing then at the Parish Center. And from there, we went on, but we were gobsmacked. So, I have to tell you that this is kind of a tough discussion, because we've spent a lot of time on the proposed plan and the design and the art of it. But Mr. Garcia himself says, rezoning cases are difficult because there's no guarantee that what ultimately gets built will be desirable. There's no perfect zoning district at present. And so we think this is what's going to happen. But the real question is B3 where we want to be? Or could something happen with the existing zoning? Nobody ever wants to come in with that. There was a lot made at the Plan Commission about, well, in 2016, we tried to rezone this and couldn't get it done, and now we've got a plan. And it was the lack of a definite design. No, it wasn't. That was the continuation of the last 25 years at least of an attack on a neighborhood. Or, I need more, I need upzoning, I need this, I need that. We didn't get to R4 on the north side of our property just because it was willed. That was the council's decision to appease the owner at the time. Okay, it's not, to me, a gateway isn't five or six stories on one side and 3 stories on the other. It would look best, really, if the gateway matched the building on the other side. We're told not to worry about making this B3 because the odds are that it won't be developed any more than 6 stories, FAR, parking, the expense. It gets so expensive after 9 stories. Would anybody do it? Well, they're doing it in Champaign. And we can do it in B3. And if somebody comes along and this isn't built, but they say, well, we've got B3 here now, all we need to do is get rid of that special use permit, and we could build 17 stories. They're doing it in Champaign. Why would they stop doing it for Urbana? The railroad activity. I live near the railroad. I hear it all the time. Once or twice a week is a little understatement. In the Lincoln and Nevada development discussion, there was a study done by Burns Clancy for the neighborhood at the behest of Betty Anderson. And I don't think it ever came to you folks because that request was withdrawn. What it did find, though, was that the storm sewers in that neighborhood were able to carry a 2-year rain event. 2 years. And there is no reason to think that our plumbing up there, our storm sewers, are in any better shape than theirs at Lincoln and Nevada. Let's see, I want to make sure I get to some of these notes. Right now, if you do come down Clark Street, there's a large hackberry, and I think you'll find that that building will be taller than the hackberry that's there. I can't imagine any screening that's going to be built or planted that will take the, I won't live to see it. You won't live to see it. Property values. In the report, they compare property value to just the houses on Clark and not to us. And I really think that you need to come into the hood, come stand in our backyard, come take a look, come see us. Put this off a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Joe Williams?
Hello. I'm Joe Williams. I live at 810 West Main. And I want to say that all the property along Lincoln Avenue has been upgraded. Lincoln and University, Lincoln and Clark has all been upgraded to help out the developer and build bigger. The 2005 comprehensive plan addressed that issue, and you folks have upgraded it all to make this development happen. But nothing was said about the rest of Clark Street, which is R4, and you made it a balance at that time so that the neighborhood could stay the way it is. Now, it could be developed, we just don't want it to be, 65 feet tall. So that's basically what I have to say about it, and I wish you vote no on the project. So thank you.
Thank you. And last to speak, unless there's someone else who wishes to address the council, is Suzanne Bissonnette.
Hi, thank you. I do have a picture to address Mr. Brown's question about what would this 5 stories look like from our backyard. And this was prepared by, we asked the architect to prepare this, so I don't want to pass that around. That would be the view out of our backyard. And I'll just tell you where I live. Okay. I'm Suzanne Bissonnette. I live at 804 West Main. We also own a little rental house at 802 West Main, which is on the corner there with Busey, and a little property 305 North Busey. So essentially that corner of Main and Busey. We've lived there since 1992. We've raised our family there. We still have, we can't seem to get rid of the kids. They're still there. But, part of the reason, we moved to that neighborhood was because the zoning had been changed to residential. And we felt it was a safe investment for us. We have been a part of a very dynamic and interesting neighborhood. The neighbors all act like neighbors. We know each other. We do things for each other. We have parties. We care about each other. We take care of each other. And so when we saw this new proposal, we were a little alarmed. It has always been, we have always had to be very active within the city to protect our properties and to protect our investments. A number of us, on that block have served, with zoning and on the council and whatnot. So I do stand opposed to this proposal. I'm not against, the business development on the corner of Lincoln and University. I am very opposed to the scale of this project and the density of this project. We're talking about 400 people, right? So there's going to be 16 townhomes on the north side of Clark Street, and then on the, that's exactly backwards, on the south side of Clark Street and Lincoln there. And then on the north side, we're going to have this 5-story building, all apartments, and then we would have the business with the hotel and business underneath it. So this is enormous scale. I think if you've driven through that neighborhood, our concerns when we went before zoning were, first of all, for, the density and the scale of it. We're very concerned about our property values. You can see, this is what I'm going to see out of my backyard if we brought up that's an 8-foot fence, by the way, that I do have in my backyard, and that's the view over the 8-foot fence because there is a little parking lot behind us, and we'll be looking square at the 5-story building. My neighbors will get to look at the 3 stories before they look at the 5 stories. Also, one of the things that was not considered at all, or nobody I talked about tonight, was the amount of noise that comes with this many people coming to the neighborhood. There's going to be garbage trucks. There's going to be delivery trucks. I'm just astonished that students don't drive because, if students didn't drive, I could park every day in my neighborhood, and I can't. We know it when it's summer. We don't have to look at the green grass because there's actually some parking. So students do drive. They will bring cars. They will drive. And so this is going to add to congestion and a very poor egress from that property. So I'm concerned about the noise and the congestion. I'm concerned about the safety of the students. So if you have you walked across, there's buses. Really? There's no buses that go down Lincoln. They have to go across the street, have to go across Lincoln, and then they have to go across University to get to a bus. I don't know, this is like 6 lanes and God knows how many across University. You had better be moving when you're going to get that bus. So I am concerned about the safety of the students catching the buses as well. Property value, where am I at? Okay. I did want to finish with, I'm not sure exactly where the redesign came from, but now Looking out my back, what I'm going to see is what I counted up was 54 parking spaces. I don't know how many of you have 54 parking spaces that you get to look at every day. And what happens with parking spaces is, people have their lights on, and so then that flashes all across your house and the whole neighborhood. So, we don't like the redesign at all. If you end up going with this, I would rather this was 3 stories, but if it goes with what it is, I sure don't want to be looking out my window at 54 parking spaces. But my major points are, I really think that the density and scale of this project is enormous. I really do think it will decrease our property value in the historic district. We've tried very hard to have a great neighborhood there. This is not adding residents to Urbana. This is students in a transient population, right? So, if these were actual townhouses and, some little houses built to actually, bring people to live in Urbana, I would be, supportive of that, but that's not what this is. So, any questions?
Madam Mayor, may I ask a clarification question
Yes.
over the exhibit that was passed out? I just wanted to ask, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, since this was shown at an earlier Plan Commission meeting, that this elevation reflects the previous design, not the one that shows the building
That's
setback?
correct. So you would want to add then into that picture 54 parking spaces, right at the bottom of the picture.
Thank you for that clarification.
Before we begin the discussion, I do want to respectfully disagree with the speaker that students are not residents. Students comprise almost half of Urbana's population. Our revenue to this city depends on their counting, as being counted as part of our population. Our share of the income tax from the state, which is millions of dollars a year, are due to the students in our population. So we really do need to respect the needs of the students as well.
I'm very respectful of the students.
Yeah.
I've devoted my entire career since 1985
Okay.
to the students. I'm not being disrespectful of the students. I'm saying it's a transient population.
Well, 2/3 of the households in Urbana are rental, so our population is transient. You're absolutely right about that. Okay, in order to discuss, can we get a motion on the floor? Bill?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 2019-02-015, an ordinance amending Urbana zoning map, rezoning 802, 804, 806, 808 Clark Street from R4 to B3, and 810, 812, 814, and 816 Clark Street, and 408 North Lincoln from B2 to B3.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there discussion? Jared and Dean, we can just go down the line if you think that would work.
I just wanted to make a point of order for that motion that we're just discussing the zoning in this discussion and not the special use, since we have to be so specific in our considerations of zoning.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is the zoning.
I have a question for the developer, if I still may do that.
Sure.
A little late.
Come on up to the microphone, please.
Thank you, sir. The one thing I haven't heard tonight is anybody mention jobs, and I'm not talking about the $30 million of construction, but long-term jobs. How many long-term sustainable jobs would you think this might produce?
Well, I would say in the 15 to 20 range. And then, of course, we have student staff that's part of that. So not all of it's full-time, but there's, upwards of, call it, 15-ish people that will be working there at all times.
I was just curious. I mean, it's a nice environment to work in after
Yeah.
it's built, and I think those are 15 or 20 valuable jobs.
Sure.
Maintenance workers,
Right.
Et cetera. My other question is, will you own this or just manage it?
No, we will own it, yeah.
You'll own it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Dennis?
Okay, I really have thought about this quite a lot and have tried to propose possible alternatives to my fellow council members and staff. And some of those concerns kind of got knocked out of my thoughts, partly because of the setback that now the developer has agreed to make of the long wing. And I did just recently, ask about trying to reconfigure even the long wing into an S shape or whatever. And so, my concern, of course, is how this will appear to people who, live in the neighborhood from different angles. And it would be very helpful to have the an image of proportion and scale, a perspective view from West Main Street, because part of the importance of a historic district is the view shed which surrounds it. And by destroying the view shed, these are historic preservation terms, you diminish the historic value of the property because it's no longer isolated or unique. It becomes enmeshed in commercial structures or whatever. But on the other hand, I also acknowledge that University Avenue is ripe for further development, and many of the commercial uses along University Avenue, especially to the east, while they might have been sufficient at an earlier time in this community, are destined for change. And we no longer can expect that the one-story Chinese takeout location or the Taco Bell or the dry cleaners will be there forever on University Avenue, and we've seen the rather startling transformation of University Avenue in Champaign, our neighbor. I never really wanted to see five-story buildings in this community. I think this community is more appropriate for an approach in construction height, to take the Paris model and have the courthouse tower be one of your tallest points of view, and have everything a little lower than that. And you could say, if you look at the landscape of Paris, or more significantly London, that the new tall buildings, which have been constructed in the last 30 years, have so transformed the appearance of the city that I think it's a detrimental mix. On the other hand, we have very few significantly beautiful buildings that still exist in our community outside of the downtown. You could list on your hand the buildings that have what I would call more of a classical, restrained, and thoughtful architectural approach. And the buildings that have been built in the 70s in the downtown area do not bear the standard of time for appreciation. And I'm talking about the Busey Building and the Plaza Building on Main Street. They are too large in dimension for the context. They do not appreciate the context. So I would really, I would say that the development has improved itself by this late adjustment offered by the architects. And I think it's true that so many of the uses here are appropriate for the corner. Yes, I would agree that the scaling is not going to make an equal scaling for a concept of a gateway, but it will be a prominent building at the approach of the downtown and the university area. University Avenue is, I think, destined for a lot of changes, and I'm very sorry that sections of Main Street go right up toward that intersection at University and Lincoln. I guess I would encourage the architect and the developer to provide as much visual screening as possible in the terms of vegetative growth, high-growing trees, because I know that a tall tree can block can block a lot of things behind it. And I think that's the only safeguard that we can really ask you to assist us with in protecting what I think is the view shed of the homes on West Main Street. I was ready to, I guess I was right on the wall between wanting to approve this and just saying this is just not going to fit for us. And I think that scale is a problem, but I think that scales are changing along the main arterial corridor of University Avenue. And I think I have to admit that I live on Green Street, and we're going to be having a 3-story apartment block on the corner of Vine and Green right here next to the city building. And I'm not even sure I'm ready for that myself personally, because I walk by there every day, and I'm used to seeing the space, and I'm used to seeing the courthouse. And these views will now be blocked to me as I approach Vine Street from my home. And I think that ultimately it's not going to improve my property values, but my property values probably are already in question, because I have one of the larger houses on Green Street among really not very well cared for cottages, and one of the most uncared for cottages right across the street from me, and has been for 20 years. So I understand, how that could be very uncomfortable. At least you're not on the very street where the development is occurring, even though you're really close to it. So I don't know. I'll probably support this, but I do really have sympathy for the historic district, and I hope, and I can see that the developer and the architect have sensitive insight, and I think that the slides that you've shown of the interiors of your development rather exceeded my expectations. And I will just add one more caveat to this conversation, is that my personal feeling is that the use of clapboard or fake clapboard on an exterior facade does not improve the facade. It's kind of a cheap out. And I would think that if you wanted to reconsider some of the facade work that is clapboard, we are being suffocated by cheap clapboard construction in this town. So that's my 2 cents. And 25.
Bill?
Yeah, I think we have to be a little careful about expanding the influence of historic districts too much, or historic buildings. When they're approved, you have to get approval of the people that live within the district. And I can understand adjacent properties being sensitive to that. But if we're starting talking about influencing development a block away, I'm worried that in the future, when somebody makes a historic nomination, people a block away, might be downtown Urbana, might be someplace on University or Lincoln or something, will come out and oppose the historic nomination, even though they're a block away, because they'll say, well, look, what you did over there, you said they couldn't do this because it would impact the historic district. So I'm a little concerned about sort of expanding this influence. I think it's a really nice block. I go through there quite a bit. The homes are really attractive. The new development has occurred there has been fairly sensitive to the historic district. So, it's definitely something to preserve. I hope it does stick around for another 100 years. But I do think that the concerns about the impact of the 5-story building are a little overblown, especially if you take the time to consider what you could do in your own backyard, even planting, a row of arborvitae or some fast-growing
Got him already.
You got him, doesn't help? Okay. But, I live a block south of Leal School. I understand the noise problem, and that's, a couple times a day, everybody coming and going at the same time. So this would be spread out. But the historic district, expanding that concerns me. I do think that the R4 buffer is something we don't have around all B3 areas. We have B3 areas that are right across the street from R2s and R3s. So that extra half block does help. So I think the B3 is appropriate for that corner. And considering it's University Avenue corridor, close to university, close to hospitals, it'll be right on the rail trail. I think that hopefully the trail gets built from there to downtown, make it a 10-minute straight walk to the Station Theater, Broadway Food Hall, grocery stores. That's really, there aren't many places like that where you can increase density and be that close to all the amenities downtown. But I've spent hours studying this. I watched the Plan Commission meeting, and I'm in favor of the zoning.
Okay. Reese, did you want to say?
Yes, well, regarding the community surrounding this project, I in some ways I do empathize with you, because I know when the many times that I came home to visit before I moved back, I was not pleased with the apartment buildings down the street from my mom's house that had managed to arise, seemed like out of nowhere. However, one thing I do know and I can speak to is that those people can't see into my mom's home. They can't see into any of the homes that are on Ellis Drive or Tremont or, Eureka. They are higher than I think they are higher than 5 stories. And I've had to live with the acceptance of diversity in my community and in my side of town. And I have to accept that because we, as a city, have to grow. And if we don't grow, then the services that we do have and the services that we love to be able to offer to other people in the city, those services will not grow either. We can't, as much as I love old architecture and I respect history, I have very high respect for the history of this town. I do know that also that we are in dire need of growth in new architecture and new buildings to house many different people, and there's a diverse population. I love that about Urbana, the diversity of the population in this town, and how, as a city and as a community, we continue to grow and accept and still live together in somewhat of a harmonized way. I don't think you should fear that anyone is going to build on top of what's already there. That seldom happens. It sounds like it sounded to me like someone was in fear that, well, we've got the 5 stories, when next time there'll be 10 stories, and no one can build upon what's already finalized at a particular story. That generally doesn't happen. I never saw it happen before. But we also have to be accepting of what kind of growth we're going to have, and accept that we have to grow. So I'm hoping that this Gather project is everything that the developers have shown from the previous photos, that I saw, and I'm hoping that it will help not just the surrounding community, because this particular community is my next door neighbors in my ward. So I'm hoping that there will be some acceptance on both sides of this, as far as how we deal with the student population for U of I, as well as the population that is in the immediate area. So.
Eric?
Wow. So when the News Gazette came to ask me if I were talking to Aaron's successor, what would I say to her was the hardest kind of decision to make. And I told him, and I'll just say publicly now what I said, because I don't think they quoted me in the paper on that particular point. It's when you have to do a balancing act between what your constituents want and what the rest of the city wants. And who knows, who knew? I didn't know how that was going to come to me. But it seems as though it's here, because I know very well what my constituents want. And I have to say that I am really upset with the process by which this came to us. We should have had a portion of that property with a B zoning proposed and another portion with the R, so that somebody like me who believes that the R part is too big but wants the rest of it, that we could have debated that honestly and not be put in the position of voting against the whole deal because of a problem that we perceive with that part. And the realization that the reason it came to us this way is because the R part couldn't even fit anywhere in our zoning ordinances, and it's end around the zoning ordinances. So if I sound angry about that, I am. Now on to the merits of this particular case. I love the commercial part. I have tried to find out everything I could about rail, and what I have found out is good. And from my brief conversations, they support that. So, you know, I'm glad you're in town. So here's the choice. Here's the choice that we have come to, and that I've come to. But, you know, I have no political ambitions, so I'm certainly not going to make everybody happy. At 80 years old, I've run out of political ambition. I'm even older than Bernie. So, so here are the choices. That region, that property is in a bad way now, and letting it drift is not a viable option. The other one we have on the table is an option which has some very great strengths, but where we fear, and I will say, I really do believe this project will stress the transportation infrastructure. We were told that it's very friendly to bike and pedestrian. No, it is not, because you have to get across Lincoln and you have to get across University, and getting across either of those on foot or on two wheels is a tough job. So something is going to have to be done about all of that. And, but, you know, that can be done. We can make that work. And I'm persuaded by talking to Brad that the sanitary and storm sewer situation is manageable. So, and I'd probably rather, frankly, given what I know and have found out about various developers, I'd probably rather partner with rail in there than with almost anybody else. So, I don't know what I'm going to do when you call my name, but these are all the things that I'm trying to balance.
Mary Alice?
Well, I get to be the last one to go, so unless somebody else wants to chime in.
You're not the last. Jared will be last.
Oh, Jared will be last. Awesome. So a couple of things. I think there's a lot of things to like about this project, and I just want to echo a lot of what my fellow council members have said, and emphasize the fact that we have an extended stay option here. We have two hospitals, and as somebody who's taken my mother to Mayo in the past, it's been really nice to have an option in which you have an extended stay. So that's really nice, a really nice added benefit to the community. I also like having some retail there. We have the Retreat across the street. You have Einstein Bagels. I'm very familiar with that building over there. My office used to have some space on the second floor. So I think it's nicely suited for that retail, for the extended stay, for the hotel. To have a hotel space that's that close to the university, I think is a really added benefit. Everybody knows trying to get a room during graduation is just about impossible. Having a single bedroom and efficiencies is also something that's really truly missing in all of these new properties that we are seeing. We're seeing 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. It just doesn't exist, and it's really nice to see that. I think one of the things that Bill said was that we can't let historic districts really dictate beyond a couple of blocks, beyond one block. I just want to give a shout out to 3 individuals. Mary Lee McDonald, Carolyn and Norman Baxley. Those people are the ones who really saved that historic district. They're the ones who came in and renovated those houses. And as a child, I remember those houses falling down. And so I think we do owe a debt of gratitude to all those people and people who came in and worked really hard. That said, I will say this. I don't care what neighborhood that this was in, a historic neighborhood or not a historic neighborhood. If you have something that's going into an R2 neighborhood, we have to be careful. We have to be careful about the business districts and the upgrading of different zoning. Okay, so I'm just going to put all that out on the table. Last but not least, I think my major concern with this project is that 5-story residential building and the view shed, as Dennis was talking about. And I would feel a lot better if I saw an actual drawing of what people on Main Street would see. Are they going to see something that's 2 stories because of the distance back that they are? Having these proposals, and I'm really happy to see that the building is going to be now set back 65 feet from the sidewalk. That's excellent. But it's very difficult to visualize what that would look like. And I've been on the fence about this project. Really, that is the only thing, the only sticking point for me is that 5-story building. So with that said, I just like to throw this out there. I believe we have another city council meeting next week. Is that correct, clerk? Yes? I would be 100% in support of this project if I could see what that will look like for those residents in the R2 district.
Thank you. Jared?
I was wondering if I could have Kevin or Lori come up and talk about one of the LaSalle criteria a little bit. The last one, number 8, about the gateway. I know, and Carol, you could probably comment on this as well. We had talked about, when I met with you guys, improvements to Lincoln Avenue that are to be expected that I don't know that we've considered as far as our proposed, this proposed use and the land use development, or in particular what developments are planned with the redo of University Avenue from Wright Street all the way through town, and how that is going to improve the pedestrian situation at those corners. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, sorry, I caught about half of what you were saying, because I was trying to find that part.
I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about the Lincoln Avenue improvement and about the university improvement, the IDOT improvement that's going to be happening there as well.
Is Craig still here? Why don't we have Craig come up? He's the expert on this.
Oh, I'm sorry, Craig, I forgot you were back there. Yes, Craig would also be able to tell us a lot about those improvements.
Yeah, I was hiding in the back, but I can come forward. So Craig Schunkweiler, Assistant City Engineer. So the University Avenue improvements, tentatively, those are scheduled for an April letting, pending some clearances, which would mean they would start improvements here midsummer, multi-year contract. They're going to resurface the roadway, put in new curb ramps at the University and Lincoln intersection, and modernize the signals at that location. As far as the Lincoln Avenue improvements, we're finaling design as we speak. If we walk up from Springfield Avenue North as we go along, the first block north is Stoughton. We would have a refuge island there that would help pedestrians cross the road. We improve the curb ramps at all four corners. One block further north at Main, we would do the same thing there. We'd actually have two refuge islands, one on the north side, one on the south side of the road there. We'd also do curb bump outs on the side street there, so that would help pedestrians. Go up to Clark, we're looking at the same kind of treatment there where we would do side street bump outs, resurface the road. We're looking at narrowing the vehicle lanes to 11-foot lanes. With this impending development, it would trigger a refuge island to be installed there at Clark, which would help pedestrians cross the road. On the east side of the road, we do not have any sidewalk improvements within the border of this project. That, just to be clear, what we will be doing is improving the west side, which was the most feasible side to improve for pedestrians along the Lincoln Corridor and make that compliant with the American Disabilities Act. However, though, with the development, the developer has agreed to install a new sidewalk along the border of this project, and that would be at their cost. They would set that sidewalk from the curb line 5 foot. The pictures that Kevin showed, the sidewalk was not set back. It's immediately adjacent to the road, which is really not very good at all for pedestrians. So that would create a buffer space with new sidewalk along through there. The properties south of Clark have a retaining wall right at the back of there. They're going to demo that, and that would improve that. So in essence, they would provide some infrastructure that we would not be providing with our overlay project. Does that help you?
Yeah, sure. What about to the north side of Lincoln Avenue, north of University Avenue? Is that part of those improvements on University Avenue?
No, we would stop just south, right at Einstein Bagels. That's about as far north as we go. So we're not doing anything north of University.
What about the IDOT project on University Avenue?
They would just be at the curb approaches, and that would be it. So they're not going any farther north than, say, where the curb approach turns and runs tangent. That's about where they'll stop.
I used to live in Sharice's ward on Lindview Avenue, and my wife and I used to bike through that corridor fairly often, and often we would avoid it entirely because it's a little crazy to try and ride a bike through, or much less walk through. So I was just curious as to what the IDOT improvements were really going to be, because especially if you're on the west side of Lincoln Avenue heading south and you want to cross on that south side, you got to cross the railroad tracks, which most vehicles treat as, well, I'm just going to go over these and right into the pedestrian right-of-way, so I can make sure I can get my right turn done before, the rail tracks. So that's why I'm asking because if they're, not only do we have that other development up there to the north that's going to bring more foot traffic down that road as well, if there's not going to be that much more, I was just curious as to how that changes the pedestrian outlook, especially on that particular northwest corner.
Right. I mean, going back to when you mentioned bicycles, the bicycle master plan that we have does not show any improvements along Lincoln Avenue itself, nor really along University, but they're going to widen the sidewalk at locations where they can to provide a wider sidewalk, which then a bicyclist could use. That would also benefit the pedestrians as well.
Okay. Thanks, Craig. Thank you, Kevin.
Any other comments? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just had one other thing to say. In seeing where everybody has been standing on the council, and I wanted to say something specifically to you residents who are there. A lot of you may not know me. I know I'm relatively new on the council. I'm also relatively new to the community. I know a lot of you have lived here for a very long time. A lot of you in that neighborhood have invested a lot into your homes and into what you're doing right there, and I don't wish to be a person who is young and inexperienced making a decision about your futures and your properties and seeing where the council is. I'm going to abstain from voting on this out of respect to you all, and let the folks who have lived here and had their whole lives here, for the most part, make these decisions. So I do support it, but I'm going to abstain.
Dennis?
Craig, I wanted to ask you a question, Craig. One of the more important egresses from this development is going to be taking people over down Clark Street. And they're going to either choose to turn on Busey and go south into the university area, or else they're going to go to the next street to the east, which is Kohler. One positive thing about Kohler is that if you go north at University, there's a light. And I can't remember what happens on the south end because I don't take that street very often. What is the city's response or plan to improve Clark Street past this development to the east? And will Busey be improved in some way that will accommodate heavier traffic? Because I think that people, rather than trying to get off at Lincoln, are going to go to the east and try to make their way either to University and get on there because there's a light, or go south. So I think that the future condition of roads on Clark and also on Busey to Maine has got to be a discussion here.
So to give you perspective on the amount of traffic that this development is projected to produce, at the Lincoln and Clark intersection, when the developer's engineer looked at whether or not signals were warranted, one of the criteria is you take the higher anticipated volume from either the west approach or the east approach. So currently, as it exists right now today, the west approach has the highest amount of volume. So you take that volume, so that basically sets aside the east approach, okay? And you use that in the criteria along with the north-south traffic, okay? So when the developer adds in the traffic on the east approach, the west approach still is the higher traffic.
But
generally.
I think you're misunderstood me. I don't care about Lincoln Avenue at all.
Right, I understand. What I'm giving you is an idea relative to what we're seeing there right now. If we saw something different, so what I'm saying is that I know there's been concerns expressed about entering Lincoln Avenue from Clark. And I'm looking at it from the city's vantage point. Are we going to basically jam that intersection up? I don't believe that's the case. We had 12-hour camera counts, and I had one of our engineers did a gap study. And we selected times throughout the day. We also looked through the peak hour, and we saw that there were certainly times when there may be difficulty entering and exiting, but nothing substantially to deter traffic to then go significantly to Busey or use Clark to the east. That's where this comes into play, Dennis. So the city, as far as improvement, we would look with the developer on what to do with Clark to bring that Brick Street up to snuff, up to a good level within the periphery of that project. And we haven't had those discussions, but there are some deficiencies that we'll have to basically work through. East of Busey, there are no plans for the city to upgrade Clark. South of Busey, there are no plans to upgrade Busey. The amount of traffic that's projected from this development on Busey is not of concern to me with the condition of the road that it is as it exists right now. When I see traffic, I'm looking for significant impacts. I do not see significant impacts when I reviewed the traffic impact analysis. I'm telling you as a professional, I'm not as concerned. Does that mean that we will not have a few issues that arise? Maybe perhaps at Busey and Maine, we might have to go to a four-way stop, that'll be something that the city will have to monitor there. But I'm not really concerned with what I'm seeing from this development.
And so the road surfaces are considered to be adequate?
They're not great, and certainly if we could improve them, that would be great, but I think that's more on the city's dime, not the developer's dime, because, you know, we have a neglected.
That's why I'm asking you.
Right, we have a neglected infrastructure. I mean, we know that we are short on funds, and if we could improve it, we certainly would. Does that help?
Any other comments?
Can I ask a question of council? So I guess I'm wondering if there is a value in following up on Mary Alice's concern about seeing the perspective viewpoint presented to council before we make a decision.
I think so. I hate to prolong this because it's no fun for me, and I suspect a lot of other folks. But that could serve to either alleviate or confirm the major concerns about the project. So I would guess that it would mean deferring decision for a week, I guess, until regular council, if visualization could be obtained in that time.
Charisse?
What is the deadline for voting on the ordinances and what have you?
Well, as was stated, they are under a very tight timeline at this point. So even another week delay is going to have an impact on the project. And the question then becomes, what happens, what you see in a week?
Can I ask the developers, is there a way, would it be at all possible? How would that affect your need to get started?
It would. The answer is it.
But would it be, what I'm asking, I guess, is, can you put it off? Can you put it off a week?
No, I can't. We're at a go, no go by the end of this month. So
Okay.
we were really hoping to move forward today, or, you know, it would be detrimental to us. The delay would be detrimental to us.
Detrimental financially, detrimental, is there any way that there could be a compromise just for us to see, I don't know, have further discussion on some level, or no? None at all?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay. I think the clerk will need to call the roll then tonight.
Councilmembers Brown,
Yes.
Hazen, Hersey,
Yes.
Jacobson,
No.
Miller,
Abstain.
Roberts,
Yes.
Wu,
Abstain.
So that is 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses and 1 no and 2 abstentions. This motion passes. And could the clerk clarify, abstentions
abstentions go with the majority.
go with the majority? Okay, next up is ordinance number 2019-02-016, an ordinance approving a special use permit, 802, 804, 806, 808, 810, 812, 814, 816 Clark Street 406, 406 and a half, 408 North Lincoln Avenue. Is there a motion? Bill?
I'll move approval.
I'll second that.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Mary Alice. Any discussion? Mary Alice?
So for those of you, I think most people know that basically for B3, the reason that we're doing this is that in order for a residential to be built on a B3, you have to have a special permit. At the same time, that does allow us to ask for additional items, and I would like to ask for an additional item, so I don't know if I have to make an amendment right now or if that's up for discussion, but I'll pose it as a discussion item for now. I'd like to increase the screening with vegetation on the south side of the lot, which is the north side of Clark. Right? I believe that's correct. The south side of the lot, but the north side of Clark. I'd like to increase that vegetation to screen the parking lot as a condition for the special use permit.
And I would second that request because I think that's very valuable to beautify what is becoming now a street with lots of parking on it.
Okay. So is this an amendment to the,
Somebody needs to move an amendment.
I'll move an amendment.
okay, so you're moving, your motion is to increase the screening with vegetation on the south side of the north parking lot.
South side, the south side of the lot, but the north side of Clark Street.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So I second that, of course.
Okay. All those in favor of this amendment? Oh, Bill.
What are the current requirements for screening for parking lots? Anything? You guys are looking it up?
Not in particular.
Kevin's going to double check my math, but I believe the requirement is 3 shrubs and 1 tree for every 40 feet. So that gets you something, but it's certainly not a hedge.
So, okay, I guess, I don't know how specific we need to be, if you want to make a hedge with no trees or a hedge with some trees that block the sun for the hedge, or what you want to propose, but
Would you
I
like to
I would
rely on
support
the-
some increased screening, I guess.
We could add something about in consultation with the city arborist to make sure that we're looking at the street trees and conflicts and do it that way, if that would help be more specific.
So I would like to make the motion specific to modify the minimum requirement, which you say is 3 hedges and 1 tree for
3
every
shrubs.
40 feet. 3 shrubs and... Hmm?
We have an amendment on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to amend the amendment. So I would like to amend the amendment to supersede the minimum requirement of 3 hedges and 1 tree every 40 feet to 2 hedges and 2 trees every 40 feet.
You might want to consult with the city
Yes,
arborist.
pending consultation with the city arborist. On the feasibility of that.
I'm also not sure, so that would be technically perhaps a waiver from a zoning ordinance requirement to do a reduction or a swap out. So maybe stick with 3 and 2, then it's an addition instead of a reduction.
Aha, okay. Okay, that sounds...
3 shrubs and 2 trees? Is that what?
3 trees and...
3
3 trees and 2 shrubs.
No, the reverse, 3 shrubs.
3 shrubs and 2 trees, okay, every 40 feet, okay.
Okay, and that was an amendment to the amendment?
That's the amendment.
Okay, so,
Mine wasn't specific.
discussion of this amendment to the amendment. Dennis?
Would we find that we might get better screening, more screening, if we didn't specify a particular number? Could we have perhaps voluntarily, or do we have to specify how much screening? Because the more we have, the better it's going to be, I have a feeling.
Perhaps some direction on what it is you're trying to screen, because obviously a shrub would be better at screening things like parking lot lights, but trees are better at screening buildings.
Mary Alice, can you answer that?
Well, I actually fear that the headlights are going to be more detrimental and immediate effect. So I guess I would say that we need to increase the amount of shrubs because they're low to the ground. Is that what you're saying, Lori? Yeah, that is what I would say, but I'll.
And that's kind of the direction I feel I'm going to go to. I
So-
mean,
but
certainly in the
This is not the
parks.
amendment to the amendment. So the amendment to the amendment is the 3 shrubs and the 2 trees, right?
And you're talking about it's going to be provided by the developer. The city will also have trees on the parkway. Is that correct?
Craig, do you know offhand if there are currently trees in the right-of-way at that location?
Definitely are.
There definitely are.
There definitely are.
There's at least one big oak and a couple maples.
So they're already there.
There are trees in the rendering.
I think it might be prudent for us to defer to the arborist with the direction from council that we would like to increase the screening low to the ground, but maintain 3 to 1 at minimum, but increase the screening as the arborist recommends.
Sounds good.
I just wanted
I
to
like
point
that.
out, and I think this goes along with that point, and that's a good point. We did, I believe, last year do a zoning ordinance text amendment for our screening that says alternative. So I'll just read the whole thing. It says shrubs and trees shall be provided with 1 tree and 3 shrubs for every 40 linear feet or fraction thereof along the lot lines that require a landscape buffer. Alternative planting plans that create a sufficient barrier may be approved by the zoning administrator upon the recommendation of the city arborist. So I think, if you add something that says we would like the city arborist to be consulted to, just to hammer home that point, that would be good.
I haven't heard a second to Eric's motion, so perhaps we can just vote on Mary Alice's.
Yeah, let's just vote on Mary Alice.
Okay, so you're withdrawing your motion,
I
Eric?
withdraw my motion.
Okay, so we have the original motion on the floor, which is to increase screening in consultation with the arborist with the goal of reducing impact of headlights in the parking lot.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And the second on that was Dennis? Okay. So we need to vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Now we are back on the main ordinance for the special use permit. That was moved by Bill, seconded by Mary Alice. Is there any further discussion on that? Mary Alice.
I just have one quick clarification. I believe the planning commission passed it at 65 feet is the maximum, and then Lori, when she presented it, she said on the north side, the northeast side, to increase that to 70 feet. Is that correct? So when we pass that, is that what is exactly, I didn't double check the numbers in the ordinance, in the special use permit. I just wanted to make sure that.
That is what's in the ordinance. Since the redesign came late in the process, I didn't have an opportunity to double check that it is still the northeast corner that requires the added height for access, roof access. So now would be a great time to check that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, there is an exception within the International Building Code that allows us to have roof access that is not mandatory to carry that stair up 1 additional story. So we could effectively keep it at 65. The only thing that I like the idea of doing that just in case something comes in from left field from the code. That's my only reservation. But I believe that from an exception in the code, currently we can do that with a roof hatch. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Will the clerk?
I do want to ask one thing.
Sharice.
When you say roof hatch, you're talking about somebody going up like, through a tunnel or some kind, I'm sorry, I do need clarification on that.
Not a problem, not a problem. So what they typically have is at the top landing of the stair that you would have, you would have what's called an alternating tread device, and that sounds really fancy, but all it is
It's a ladder.
alternating just, where you can climb up faster vertically. And
Okay.
then there is a hatch that you would open up and climb through.
Okay, so is this roof hatch a something more like maybe fire, if there's a fire, or if it's some kind of emergency?
It's less about emergency, it's more about day-to-day maintenance,
Okay.
having to access the roof for condensing units or roof repairs or anything like that.
All right, so you're not talking about like sunbathing and barbecues?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's on the,
Hey, the roof I had, we had sunbathing and barbecues. Just want to know. Okay.
That will not be part of this project.
Okay. I just want to know.
Will are we, any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have to say, I remember in my youth lying out on rooftops in New York City.
Yeah. So, yeah. I do that in LA all the time.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmembers Brown,
Yes.
Hazen,
Yeah, sure, yes.
Hersey,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Wu.
Yes.
That motion passes. Last item on the agenda for the special city council meeting, ordinance number 2019-02-019, which is an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 3, Section 3-43, increasing the number of Class BB liquor licenses for Memoira Budimbu Mabiza and Lisette Mabake, doing business as the Best of Africa's Food Stores, 208 West Griggs Street, Urbana. This is a issuance of a liquor license to Best of Africa for beer and wine sales. There is one correction to the language in the ordinance. The second, whereas it should read, the city council finds that the best interests of the city are served by amending the section to increase the number of Classes BB licenses.
I'll move approval.
Second.
As corrected, move approval as corrected.
Move approval as corrected.
Thank you.
In the second whereas.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Eric. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmembers Brown,
Yes.
Hazen,
Yes.
Hersey,
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes.
And Wu.
Yes.
That motion passes. With no further business before this meeting of the council, it is adjourned. Thank you all. And this will be followed by a committee of the whole meeting. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Welcome to Urbana. We're on the same side. Okay. Make it beautiful. Did you ever put one?
Okay. We're dismissing Sharice. She'll be back. If we have Mary Alice, we'll start. Okay, everybody wants to go, so we'll go. Committee of the Whole meeting. Clerk, can we call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Brown.
Here.
Hazen.
Here.
Hersey.
She's coming.
She's coming, okay. Jacobson. Here. Miller.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wu.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Okay, approval of minutes of previous meetings, January 28th of 2019.
So moved.
I'll second.
I'll second, but I have a correction.
Okay, moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Jared, and we have a correction by Dennis.
Actually, two corrections.
Two corrections.
Bill, did you miss these? All right, so these are just like typos. Okay, in the last paragraph on page 2 of 3 of the minutes, the fourth line, the sentence says, "He expressed concern that the ordinance related to enterprise zones," and it should be concern, so it's not past tense, it should be present tense. And higher up on the same page, the first paragraph at the first line, following the break, CM Hazen asked about the difference between funding in fire and pension, noting that disparities in level of funding. I'm thinking he meant the police, the fire and the police pension. I don't know if that's what you meant.
No, the word police is missing.
Yes, the word police is
pension,
missing.
yeah.
So that clarification is all I found as an error in the notes.
So noted.
Okay, clarification is noted, and we had, Mary Alice had moved that, and Jared had seconded it. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Do we have any additions to the agenda? No additions to the agenda. Public input for Committee of the Whole. No public input. Any presentations for Committee of the Whole? Okay, no presentations. Any staff reports for Committee of the Whole? Yes, Dennis.
Not exactly a staff report, but I just wanted to announce that as the chairman of the Urbana Sister Cities Committee and Program, that the mayor received an official invitation from the city of Thionville, our French sister city, to travel and join them in the celebration of it's the 75th anniversary of the liberation of their community from Nazi occupation during World War II, and that they've invited a group of us to go to Thionville and celebrate with them on the weekend of November 17th, 18th, and 19th. And this trip would be a Sister City program trip, but we'll all be traveling independently in the sense that we'll be paying for our own fare there. But I believe, as before, they will put us up at a hotel at their expense, and we will participate in many events. And we were there 5 years ago. It seems like 2, but it was 5 years ago. Had a very good time. Charlie Smythe went. We brought with us a decorated veteran of the Second World War, and he was highly honored, and they were really excited to have him. They're not going to request that again this year, as the participants become older and older and harder to travel. But if anybody's interested, details will probably come by late spring or the summer about travel, and we will again invite the community at large and the city council members who would like to take the opportunity to travel to France in this event to please contact me.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next up is ordinance number 2019-02-017, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code prohibiting parking at all times on certain streets, Abercorn Street and Rainbow View by Public Works.
Good evening, Craig Schunkwarther, Assistant City Engineer. I want to introduce you to Shannon Baranek. She is a civil engineer that started with the city here in October. One of
Hi,
our
Shannon.
goals is always, or at least my goal is to hire somebody smarter than I am, and she's certainly that. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her present this item.
Hi, like Craig said, my name's Shannon Baranek, and what we're presenting here today is a member of the subdivision approach traffic commission with a safety concern over a curve where Abercorn joins Rainbow View. So we investigated, also got public input for people who lived around that particular curve. It did find there was a bit of a safety issue on northbound people driving into basically oncoming traffic. In the process, there was only one accident that actually happened in that corner, but I drove it myself in our investigation, and it did appear to be a safety issue. And after input from the neighborhood, and we brought it to the traffic commission, and they voted to approve a no parking restriction. So I present that here for your approval. If you have any questions, let me know.
Do we have any questions for city staff? Yes, Dennis?
Sometimes we get minutes from the traffic commission so we can see their words of wisdom, and I don't think we got minutes in our packet for this one, but I'll take your word on it. It looks like the problem is you have to cut the corner a little bit too sharp because you can't drive right along the cars.
Yeah, 'cause
like
cars
you could
aren't
if they were
curved, so,
straight, but
yeah.
since it's curved, you can't really drive right close to them.
Yeah.
So you could, and then there's a fence there that kind of blocks visibility, so somebody coming from the other direction might not see you.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Jared?
Just a question of enforcement. When, in these types of situations, when we approve it, does it become something where we get our Urbana traffic folks out there, or is it just we only respond when reported by residents? Do we monitor it at all, or what do we do as far as making sure that the complaint is being addressed outside of just putting up signage?
It would be on a complaint basis.
I'm
So
sorry,
the-
go ahead, Eric.
So the other thing I remember from the traffic commission meeting was that, in fact, people very seldom do park there. But when they do, it kind of catches the motorists by surprise. So we're not really depriving people of a lot of habitual parking. So so it's really a good thing to just make sure that section stays clear of parked cars.
Dennis?
So, having said all that, and I think I agree with the direction that the Traffic Commission is heading, I'd like to move ordinance number 2019-02-017, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code, prohibiting parking at all times on certain streets, Abercorn Street, Rainbow View, to be forwarded to the City Council with approval.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Dennis, second by Bill. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No one is opposed. Move on to our last ordinance for the night. Ordinance number 2019, thank you. 2019-02-018, an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain real estate, 917 North Linview Avenue, Community Development. Yes, I'm sorry, did I make a mistake in there? No.
I didn't have my mic on. I move to approve an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain real estate, 917 North Linview.
Okay.
Second.
Moved
Second.
by Sharice and seconded by Dennis. Did you, I'm sorry, did you want to say something before we voted, sir?
Our housing inspector, Nick Hansen, he can give you some brief information, at least for public consumption, so people that
For
want
the
to
public,
have
okay.
information about what's going on.
All right. Yes. Go
Take
ahead,
it away,
sir,
Nick.
please.
All right. The property at 917 North Linview was obtained by the city through judicial deed in 2018. We had the property appraised. It appraised at $18,000. City staff spoke with several prospective buyers of the property, including neighbors, landlords, and other investors. We recommend to sell the property at auction to the highest bidder with a minimum bid of $15,000. Giving those that bought the property 180 days to obtain a certificate of occupancy. So the sale would be similar to that of 1301 Washington, with a public hearing as posted in the News Gazette next week at City Council.
Any questions? Mary Alice?
All right, so I just want, for record, if you could say exactly how you're going to advertise this, so whomever is interested in bidding on it can be there. So it's going to be in the News Gazette. Will
Right.
it be anywhere else?
So we'll post it on the property as well. It'll be on the city website.
Okay, so there's 3 places people can look for information. In front of the house, which, can you repeat the address?
917 North Linview.
Okay, you can also find it on the city website, or you can read about it in the newspaper. Thank you.
We can also do a press release, if that'd be helpful. Get out.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Charlie?
Yeah, okay, so Sharice, just to clarify this, it's a motion to send to council with a recommendation for approval?
Yes.
And then who seconded it? Okay,
Dennis
thank
did.
you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Well, good night then.
I'm turning my